Добрый день, Раф.
Добрый день, Leonid.
Hello, Rav.
Между нами
Hello, Leonid.
и примерно 12 тысяч километров расстояние.
Now it's 7, and there are thousands of miles parting between us, but still it does not stand in the way of us feeling each other. I'm really happy that we have the opportunity, and thanks to Zoom, and thanks to your technicians that can correctly organize the system and operate it. So, first of all, what I'd like to say is the data we have today is like data coming from a battlefield. Everyone counts things a bit differently, but from the information that we have, around 2 million people are already infected and 135,000 people died as a result of the coronavirus, especially in the United States, but also it depends on how you count it. When you count it in terms of economy, then it's Europe, because if you take all of Europe, there are more people infected there than in the United States, about 700,000. And in the United States, about 650,000. In Europe, there are about 75,000 people that have died all over Europe as a result of the virus, and 29,000 people in the United States. For whoever's listening now, I can say that there were also grimmer models for the world. Mathematicians talked about 120,000 dead that could have died up until now. Thank God it did not happen, and the number of dead is much lower. We'll talk about this, and I'll be happy to hear your opinion. But really, the situation in Russia, it follows the curve of the United States. To this day, there are 28,000 people infected in Russia. This is how it was in the United States 20 days ago. And if nothing will change in Russia, then the number of infected in Russia can even surpass the 250,000 people, even though that the number of deceased is much lower. So imagine how serious everything is. These are events that are unbelievable. For example, in Russia, they postponed the Victory March, and this is unacceptable, unimaginable. And how much they prepared themselves for this event, and how much everyone was waiting for it. And in Israel, Benny Gantz finally concluded they agreed on something with Netanyahu. Unbelievable. And only the corona helped us out. My question, Rav, is why are the Western countries, why did they get such a blow? If we continue looking at the numbers, then Asia, Africa, even China have much fewer infected. I know that there could be games there with statistics and so on, but you can't hide such big numbers. Why is the most advanced economy, technology, where there's freedom and democracy, are the weakest? Because precisely they are the opposite of the integrality of our world. The world is an integral system, and we, inside this integral system, need to, how to put it, we have to exist in an integral approach, and we're not. We are the opposite, the complete opposite of it. We are our ego is completely opposed to the way the system, to the way the world's built. And accordingly, the virus is taking its toll. The developed countries, says Leonid. The African countries, the third world, are they more adjusted to the integral world? Dr. Laitman, no. They are less egoistically developed. The contradiction between man, society, nature, there it's less than in Europe or in the United States. Leonid, you mean economy or in general, the entire system? Dr. Laitman, the entire system. A person in the United States is an individual. He is excluding himself from the collective, and so does everyone else. Leonid, that's very true. Even to put people into quarantine in the United States versus putting people in quarantine in third world countries are completely different things. Dr. Laitman, true, and this is why the virus affects everyone, but according to the measure to which a person is egoistic. Leonid, there are many theories about conspiracies in the United States. So, as always, people talk about different efforts that international or global forces are making in order to ruin the American economy. There's a lot to say about this. Also, the word is that it is China's attempt to punish the U.S. or that it is a mistake that the U.S. made trying to create this kind of weapon. What do you think? Dr. Laitman, I think that all of this is a result of the tiny human mind that doesn't understand how nature's built, all the more the way nature's revealed to us today. And therefore, it is impossible and in general, to read what everyone writes. If in the past I took interest in the opinion of different people, then since the coronavirus, I see that people don't understand where is it coming from. Why this calamity is it coming to us from nature? What does nature balance out by it? What does it compensate for? We're in a system. And this system is creating this kind of blow that compensates, that somehow is intended to balance out the system of nature, and where there are more egoistic people, there the blow is more decisive. Where the people are less egoistic, there the blow is felt less. That's how it works. Leonid, look. The plague from 1918, the Spanish flu, it took the lives of millions. The flu of 1957 that not many talk about, and I'm pretty surprised why. During that plague, more than 1 million people died, and only in the United States in 1957, 116,000 people died, only in the United States. In the first case, it was accelerated by the First World War that did not allow to cure properly or count casualties. And the second case, it was the outbreak of the Cold War. And the USSR invaded Hungary in order to suppress the revolution against the socialists, and these two plagues, epidemics, didn't change man's behavior essentially. Why today is everyone so afraid of change in the style of life, that our life will essentially change after this? Dr. Laitman. Yeah. First of all, this pandemic has restricted us to our homes. Wars, struggles, all these things stopped. In general, everything somehow moved aside. What caused this? What's going on, actually? Statistically, just like you yourself said, there's nothing so gruesome going on here. Leonid, true? By the numbers? You can't compare what goes on today with, soon I'll give some more data, but about death all around the globe in general. Dr. Laitman, the thing is that the attitude toward what is going on is different. First of all, we have to say that it is for the very first time in human history that we are under attack from nature as a whole, from integral nature, all of humanity. Unexceptionally. In Oceania, and there are different islands everywhere. Meaning it's some kind of an unseen enemy that passes through all of humanity, and it's very interesting. This integrality, well, relatively massive. Relatively massive attack of nature, the way it acts everywhere in all countries. There was never such a state where suddenly, in all countries, you can say that life came to a freeze and everyone's perplexed. Everyone's sitting at home, you can't go out, you can't do nothing. I'd say that it is some kind of a psychological impact that's kind of paralyzing, and humanity is getting very interesting thoughts. Why? How come? What can we do? And it can't do nothing. There's nothing to do. It can pass from one to another in different ways. There could be such mutations where everything that you had in the past will not help anymore, and what are you going to do then? Leonid. Yeah. It's possible to say that the fear that people have for their life today is related to the growth of the ego. Because back in those pandemics, there was nothing different about it. No one sat at home. Countries didn't try to stop the terrible disease this way. Dr. Laitman, true, I'm surprised. If we just look at the dry numbers, how many passed away? How many are infected? How many were harmed? Actually, there's nothing that frightening about it, if one could say, you see? And when people were sitting at home, during this time, people that died as a result of this plague, the number of people that died is much less than the number of people that in this time usually die in car accidents and so on. So why are people so worried? That's exactly the question. Why? And one way or another, it's terrible and it's a big problem. But if we look at it from a global perspective, why is it so frightening? Why did the world come to a stop? Dr. Laitman, I think that this is because it is a global matter. It's a kind of a global attack from this unclear virus against which there's no vaccine. And suddenly humanity feels all of this, that it's kind of a decisive blow, I'd say. Humanity feels that everything is conquered by this, and therefore the ability to somehow use the situation, manipulate the situation, present ourselves as heroes against the attack of this unknown virus. Nothing. Everyone simply surrenders, and whoever does not surrender very quickly, one way or another, bends under it. Like, I don't know where exactly, but suppose like I heard in Belarus and in other places, very quickly everyone agrees. Leonid, no matter how you turn this, as weird as it might sound, what worries everyone usually is what's going to happen in the United States. Someone looks at it with fear, with anxiety, with some hope that something bad will happen there and America will come to its end, because the United States is playing a very big role. I always remember what you said about the downfall of the United States when you talked about this 20 years ago. I couldn't imagine how could that happen. And today, the helplessness of the management in the United States, let's put it this way, the separation, the alienation between the different states and the federal government, it influences the entire system. Dr. Laitman, look, all the empires, all the big countries, they grow, and they wither away. They all have this move where they grow and gradually disappear. So in the form that the world's in today, it can't exist this way for long, because nonetheless the egoistic contradiction is bringing us to the worst possible things. We're destroying nature. We're destroying the planet. We're destroying that place in which we are. How much can we destroy our own home, you see? So here appears the coronavirus and other viruses that we have on the way that relate to all of mankind in general and will not give us rest. We have completely pushed nature out of balance, so what do we want? Yeah, we can remember what Vavilov said, who talked about Earth as a living entity. It's an interesting thought. Say, Dr. Laitman, how will the world tomorrow, what will it be like? Connected, separated? I was asked many questions about this. People that live on different sides of the planet, people that listen to you, friends of mine. I said that I talk to you. Everyone's worried by this question. Dr. Laitman, nature, one way or another, will bend us. We will bend. We will have to change ourselves, our egoistic essence. And what will happen next, in what way, this is already a problem. In the meantime, it's still not the very first blow. It's not the first blow. But in general, I think that we are going to get a series of negative influences on humanity, and this will force us to change, to reach a recognition that we have to be integrally interconnected with nature. Our essence has to change and be rebuilt. Leonid, of course, there's from the 8 billion people that live on this planet, and I saw the rate of people that were born yesterday, for example, I saw that we have almost 8 billion people on this planet. The increase in population is 1.5% a year. About 1 million die. about 160 million people are born every year and about 1.2 million people die every year. But anyway, that number of people that have lost the ability to live the way that they did before, to be able to move from one place to another, to have meetings, suddenly felt, when they found themselves locked in their homes, they felt a fear that the previous life might not return. And people don't know how to live under these new conditions. Some say that the situation as is today can continue for 2 months, some say 3, some say a year, because no one, up until now, can't precisely, despite all of science's achievements and everything else that we have in technology, cannot precisely predict or explain how to keep on living. Dr. Laitman. I'd put it this way. I talked about this already 2 months ago, that the first blow will take about half a year. About half a year. I think that's somewhere around that in its current form, it will start passing somewhere toward the end of the summer, but will only start passing. The impression from it, the negative impression, will continue a long time. I think that up to 2 years, the different side effects from it. I'm sure that after this there will come further blows, different expressions of this virus that will change itself, and here we will see its impact on us. These are non-simple. It will keep striking us until humanity will change. Leonid, you remember that movie we watched, beat the red till they become white, beat the white till they become red? Exactly, that's what's going to happen. So I'm not looking at it as, it'll go away in a month or 2, we'll find some remedy and everything's going to be wonderful. Nothing's going to be wonderful. We have entered a level, a plane in which we have to understand that we ourselves need to change. This is what the world needs, and nature is beating us. Leonid, of course, the mobility decreased and will further decrease. People's habits will decrease. There's an assumption that the extended quarantine can even influence people's collective behavior. People will be afraid to be in places with large gatherings. I'm still talking about the golden billion, which is Europe, part of the developing countries, America, Canada. The rest of the countries, we can talk about them separately. But what determines history is that part of the planet. And these people will find themselves in a completely different situation, new situation. We can say that the showbiz can completely change. That I don't think that cinemas will be able to open in the near future, or big performances or shows. People will be afraid to gather in large gatherings, and this will people will come to the conclusion that we have to change many things. And then the entire change of things will start changing. The chain that determines our life. And probably we'll be able to reach this place that we talked about, which is a society of reasonable consumption. Could this push us toward that? Dr. Laitman. The problem is what? Not that we're consuming a lot, but the problem is our attitude toward each other and toward nature. Man disregards everything outside of him, scorns it. He wants to exploit and use everything that's outside of him, only for the sake of his temporary interests. He doesn't feel that it is his home. The feeling that I depend on others, this is the first thing that this virus has to give us. That everyone, all those around me, they're influencing me, that I depend on everyone, that they infect me. Will I live today? Will I live tomorrow or not? It all depends only upon them, on the measure to which I'm connected to them. And I will not be able to escape to any place. We see it, how all those islands and the ocean, everyone, the virus comes everywhere. Leonid, yeah, exactly. It's enough to have just one or two people that are affected because no one knows how viral it is. Dr. Laitman, yeah, even if no one visited those places, if no one came there, still, it's something that comes from nature. It comes from within nature itself. People don't even have to bear it, to carry it. We'll discover this. But this attack, man under this attack will discover himself in an antagonistic world. And this antagonistic world cannot be any different unless we change, unless we rebuild our relationship with one another. And this is what the virus has to do, to force us to change our attitude toward one another and our attitude toward nature. I have to acknowledge that the place that I live on this planet, that this is my home, and that all of humanity is my family, whether I like it or not. I'm completely dependent on them, and they're dependent on me. And this awareness nowadays on the planetary level has to be immersed in people. Everyone has to start digesting, internalizing this. See how everyone starts to agree with what's going on. Leonid, look, maybe it will really help the changes, as you put it, it will bring to decreasing the tension between countries, stop the wars and everything. Dr. Laitman, no doubt. No, what wars? What conflicts? Viruses are attacking us. Nature is attacking us. It's coming out from all holes against us, against all of us. And then there's no difference. There's no difference between the United States, Russia, Europe. Leonid, you of course know about the unfortunate cases where people on ships were infected, and these ships, you can't use them anymore. There's something much stronger than A-bombs and missiles. Dr. Laitman, right, stronger and more humane. Leonid, will people understand the reason for this, or are we the only ones that have to understand this, or the politicians, philosophers, people that shape public opinion, they have to understand these things too, or people like you or different leaders? How is all of this supposed to happen? How will the approach, the attitude toward life, how will it change? Will people calm down after this plague or no? I don't think so. I think that nature started a direct attack against us, and until it will cause us to surrender, And until we develop a good attitude toward each other and toward nature, nothing will change. We have to be good-hearted toward each other and also toward nature, as unrealistic as it might seem or primitive. There are different ways to look at this and so on, but this is exactly what will determine our future. Leonid, why are the decision makers not listening to the warnings? Scientists, culture figures, they've been saying for a long time that something like this might happen. There is a movie from 2011 about this, where exactly this situation is described. The reports from scientists in 2017, 2018, when they talked about the possibility of the appearance of the coronavirus, and in general, there are plenty of different kinds of viruses, similar viruses in this world, and there was a circle of people that understood that sooner or later it will break out. Why the decision makers that are losing control today, that are losing the money, why didn't they listen? Dr. Laitman, they can't listen. They try to find their immediate profit in the current state. What interests them is money and power. You know, these people, this is the only thing that influences them, and I understand them. I don't blame them. Were they not so, they wouldn't have made it to the top of this egoistic chain. Leonid, today, what do you think? Repeating to the same question. The fear for myself and for my relatives and friends, will they awaken the feeling in them that it's a general problem, or will they just hope that it'll go away and that's it? Dr. Laitman, everyone hopes for it to go away. For them, the main thing is to just keep on going. Their main problem is to leap over the number of infections and deaths and to put people back to work. Even though that somewhere at the back of their mind they understand that the world's changing and will not be as it was, still they will try to make it as it was before. They have clear ways of how to convey the money, how can they change? Their mind doesn't work any other way. It doesn't work in coordination with nature, and therefore I'm not expecting anything good from world leaders. They will try to bring the world back to the same form in which the world was in. Leonid, so how can these changes occur? Are these revolutions or some other parallel rule, or what's supposed to happen? Dr. Laitman, no. The time of revolutions has passed. The times of masses taking to the streets, Josephine at the barricades, all that's gone. The thing is that the people's awareness became such in the world in general, it became such that it influences the leaders of the world too, and they start understanding that the time has passed. I think that in our times there will be no more such revolutions, no one will be overthrown, but it'll happen. There will be a gradual, quiet change of human development. Leonid, you're writing about this all the time. You're saying that Israel has a special role in setting an example to the rest of humanity as to the connection and so on. Do you think that the situation today will allow Israel for them to become an example for humanity of how to connect and care for one another. Dr. Laitman, no, this isn't the Israel that I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the nation living within the borders of this country. This nation is no better or worse than, maybe even worse, but than the other nations of this world, but certainly they're unready for any practical kind of change. Maybe the virus will influence them in a positive way and they will start developing some kind of awareness, understanding the problem that they have. But in principle, much time will go by until this nation will be able to undergo an ideological revolution and acknowledge that it has to be an example for the rest of the nations that in general are really subconsciously, this is what they're expecting. And this is also the root of anti-Semitism, that they're expecting some kind of an example from Jews that the Jews don't want to give. But what do they give to the world? Neither the Semites or anti-Semites understand. Leonid, that's clear. The Jews were already blamed for creating this virus, so Dr. Laitman. Yeah, they think that someone pays attention to this. You understand how it is all common and it has no continuity. But in general, we are trying to publicize this knowledge that we today have reached a state where the world is integral, that it is an interdependence, and therefore there can't be such a state or that everything will be divided into hundreds of countries and nations and everything. All this doesn't exist anymore. Today the world has to understand that the complete, whole, full integration, and especially the good and safe attitude, that this is what has to bring man to equivalence of form with nature. This is what we have to achieve, and the virus will help us in this undoubtedly. Therefore, it also came to us as an attack to all of mankind. And this is how it will continue beating us, and it will continue for some time until we will take on the form, integral form that suits nature. That we will stop forcing nature, coercing it, thoughtlessly depleting it, harming it. Leonid. I fully agree. Life shows that people can be satisfied with the least. They can be in quarantine, they can be quarantined to their homes, they can give up all the luxes that they used to have, which was the peak of their wishes, like fancy cars, jewelry, stuff, vacation, all this. They can give it all up. So how people are more delving deeper into themselves. Is it good or not? Dr. Laitman, I think that it's good. People are relatively getting used to being satisfied with basic needs. They understand that it is possible to live this way. It's not that bad. It's no big deal. You can go out into nature instead of flying around or sailing in some ship. It's not that I'm against all of this. Leonid, this is gone. That's it. The ships with all the big parties, with all these cruises and everything, with the senior citizens, that's it. Dr. Laitman, yeah, that's true. all the masters of these things, what they will have to deal with, and the thousands of planes in the skies all the time. Leonid, they're grounded. Dr. Laitman, yeah, and why fly? What for? People that are turning from here to there to there to here. It all has to shift people into a new level, onto a new plane where a person has to start investigating. What can I transcend to? This is what has to be open to a person, because there is a greater adventure, a more distanced adventure than what you see and what you have left in life altogether at the end of life. Leonid, that's true. Now when you start recalling all the pleasant states, all the impressions from the past, it's not that you recall even, like it says in that book, that you won't even recall the taste of the steaks that you have eaten. So maybe nonetheless the attempt to build new relations in the family, this is the way to save ourselves. Dr. Laitman, no, I don't think so. I think that man has a much more exalted role. He has to find the opening to the upper leadership, to the upper world, to the system, where he will be able to see the forces, because everything that we grasp now, it is as a projection of the forces on our consciousness. So we have to come out to a higher level, to the level of the forces that influence our consciousness, where we will be whole, complete, and eternal. Already now, without feeling the body as some kind of necessary envelope to which we exist, or in which we have to exist, like it says in the wisdom of Kabbalah, that you will see your world in your lifetime. I mean, in this life, you will see the next world. So these are very gladdening perspectives. People will understand that there is more than just running around. Leonid, yeah, all the cruises and everything. Dr. Laitman, yeah, it's terrible, all the things that we're doing today. What are we wasting ourselves on? I think that we are in wondrous times of development. And truly, this is the development in which we'll really start feeling what nature is offering man instead of this virus, and then we will see that this virus is our savior. It is the star showing us the way. That's why it's called Corona. You know this book, Dr. Laitman? Yeah, I saw it. Leonid, I would like to conclude our talk with something you said. There are no prohibitions but one, not for myself, but for others. Dr. Laitman, thank you very much. Leonid, thank you, and let's hope that everything will happen the way that you say. Dr. Laitman, I hope that this is what will happen, and we will find ourselves in a higher world. Thank you, and all the best.